Hello everyone, and welcome back to our third edition of Stories for the Season. We are very excited to once again be partnering with NUCAT and State Street Theater to give you these readings of the season. This year, our theme, if you couldn't tell, is snow and snowstorms. We've got some wonderful fiction readings as well as true readings about storms that happened right here in New Ulm, firsthand accounts and newspaper clippings that we'd like to thank the Brown County Historical Society and their archives for letting us use those, and we hope you enjoy this year's Stories for the Season.
Again, this is Mary Ellen Domeyer with State Street Theater Company. We are pleased to be collaborating with New Ulm Public Library and New Ulm Cable Access Television in providing readings about blizzards back in the day in early New Ulm area. The next account was from the Brown County Journal, and it's about the blizzard of 1873, and it is Theodore Figge's recollections. The blizzard of January 10th, 1873. The following letter was received by the Journal from Theodore Figge, who now resides at 4436 Aldrich Avenue South in Minneapolis, concerning the blizzard which started Monday, January 7th, 1863, and lasted until Thursday of the same week. Never before or since is the knowledge of white men was such a blizzard in the Northwest seen or heard of. Monday was an uncommonly pleasant day. We, children in the little schoolhouse in Cottonwood, 3 miles south of New Ulm, had engaged in a regular snowballing fest at the afternoon recess, something then seldom possible in winter in Minnesota. There were Manderfells, Minnie and Peter, the Schlumbergers, Springers, Carl Schmitz, the Moores, Wiesners, and other children. Tori Olson was our teacher. No one was permitted to leave the first day. Olson managed to reach the farmhouse right across the road for some bread for supper and breakfast for Tuesday. The air was so dense with snow, driven with hurricane speed, that one seldom could see the pump stock in the schoolyard, perhaps 60 feet from the door. The cold was intense, 25 below zero, and no one who dared to face it was sure of his life. About 9 o'clock Tuesday morning, after nearly freezing our backs while our fronts toasted around the big box stove, luckily a large pile of wood was right up near the schoolhouse door. The two Schmidt boys and I thought we would risk getting home with the wind. They had a mile to go, and I another, to George Daines, my uncle, where I had my home, having come from Germany alone, 14 years old at the time, just 5 months before. They don't have blizzards over there. Olson advised against our going, shook his head for me. That was all the English I knew. But we went anyway. Many times I was nearly lifted off my feet on the spots in the dim trail across the 360 acres of unoccupied land between the school and Schmitz. All were fenced in, so we knew we must strike their fence if worst was no worser. We got to their house safely, and in a great hurry. There was no lagging on that trip. It was a real forced tour. Both boys had their cheeks frozen. After lingering at Schmitz for about a short time, I struck out alone for home, a mile south. I went inside the fence. All were there, then rail fences that could be made out new, and then, if not all the way, were not torn down by the storm or buried under the drifts, hard as ice. There was no sinking in it. It was all over the top going. At Beck's place, 1/4 mile this side of Daines, I was made welcome and warmed by a good hot fire. Soon after, I reached home, where everything lay many feet under snow. Not until Friday morning was the storm entirely abated. Cow sheds, haystacks, everything was level with the snow, often 15 feet deep. We tunneled some of it to get to the stock to feed and water them. Hundreds of human lives of school children and grown-ups were offered that week to the fury of the blizzard. And then we have an account in the journal in February 14th, 1936. Blizzard ties up rail bus traffic into the city. 40-mile ice-tipped gale isolates city Saturday and Sunday. Train and bus schedules annulled. A 40-mile ice-tipped gale forced right down nature's corridor from the North Pole, blasted through the Northwest Saturday and Sunday, and made old-timers in this section stop argufying. That way back as in the early 60s or 70s, weather conditions eclipsed everything the spring chickens had seen. A light fall of several inches of snow, which visited this part of the state Friday, was picked up by the frost-freighted Zephyr from the Medicine Hat, and Saturday morning it had become most inconvenient for man or beast to be out in the open. Business was at a standstill. It was so quiet on Minnesota Street, if the howling wind was not considered, that if a cash register rang up a purchase, it was echoed over in the next block. The thermometer dropped into the 20s, and the wind kept right on howling. Train service was crippled, bus service was lost in the blizzard, and before noon Saturday, everything that had wheels, whether moving on rails or highways, was stopped. The drifting snow forced through the air at the rate of 40 miles per hour was sufficient to block all moving traffic, either on railroads or highways. It was the weather climax of Old Man Winter. That winter has this one beat similar to that of 1916-17. That winter has this one beat a mile when blizzards are considered, although the present season has shown more frigidity. News of the outside world came over the radio and informed New Ulmites of the terrific blizzard that was raging over the Northwest, of the privation in numberless communities because of the shortage of fuel and foodstuffs, and of the heroic efforts on the part of public officials and train and truck crews to break through the mountainous drifts to succor isolated communities. Public schools in a large number of cities and villages of this section of the state suspended Monday. Church services were not held in a large number of churches Sunday, and meetings and gatherings of various kinds, which had been scheduled for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, as well as Monday, were postponed or canceled. The M and St. L Railroad had one of the most memorable battles of the history of the line between Winthrop and New Ulm. The road had been open Friday, and trains were being operated when the storm broke, and all train service was annulled. Some 75 men and a wedge plow battled a huge drift 15 to 18 feet deep, most of the day Wednesday in the cut near the Frank Gugesberg farm near Klossner. It was a most trying task. Darkness came on before the snow was removed from the cut, but bright and early yesterday morning, the crew of men were battling the huge pile of frozen snow. It was one of the most trying tasks of railroading on the M and St. L in this section. A crew of 22 men from St. James were in New Ulm Friday night after clearing the track between this city and St. James. They were caught in the blizzard of Saturday and forced to remain here over Sunday night. They were quartered at the Northwestern Hotel, and assisted in clearing the local yards of snow Monday. A crew of some 75 men from Winthrop assisted in clearing the track from that village to the Gugesberg's Cut, but were released Wednesday. Local labor was pressed into service yesterday and assisted in clearing the tracks into New Ulm. The road will be opened on south as soon as possible. Some 25 citizens of the Hanska community were driven to shovel the road clear between this city and that village Tuesday by reason of dwindling food and coal supplies in that village. Almost a complete cessation of train service during the past several weeks depleted food supplies as well as coal. It was stated that the supply of soft coal was entirely exhausted and that but a few tons of hard coal were on hand. Several trucks came to New Ulm during the afternoon on Tuesday following the clearing of the road and loaded up on groceries, meat, and other supplies to carry the villagers through until shipments came by rail. Trucks went to Klossner Wednesday and hauled soft coal to Hanska, which was secured at the Eagle Roller Mill Company coal yards at Klossner. Shipments of coal had been ordered by Hanska firms, but the cessation of traffic on the M. St. L. by reason of the inclement weather cut off a shipment, and the villagers watched with apprehension the supplies in basement sheds and coal yards dwindle to the 0 point. Meat and food stocks ran low, and stores in the village were depleted of foodstuffs. The supplies purchased in New Ulm Tuesday afternoon and trucked to Hanska were welcomed by the villagers, as was the coal received from the Eagle yards at Klossner. The drifts were deepest on this side of the Little Cottonwood River near the Martin Moore and Mrs. Frank Soffert farms. The snowbanks along the highway there are 13 to 14 feet high, and the Hanska shovelers showed fortitude of the highest kind in buckling these huge drifts. The hardest shoveling was in a quarter-mile stretch in that vicinity. The last train to leave New Ulm over the C&NW, Chicago and Northwestern, was a freight which pulled out of the local stations at 10:40 a.m. Saturday. This was stuck in a snowdrift 2 miles west of Springfield and remained there until Monday morning. A crew of local railroad men went from here to assist in digging this train out of the snow. Some of the drifts between New Ulm and Essex were 2,000 feet long and from 8 to 9 feet deep. The snow was packed until it was almost the consistency of ice. The plow left Sleepy Eye at 2:15 p.m. Monday afternoon, and it required until 4:30 p.m. to clear the track to Essex. The cut near the Mack Farm in Milford Township was blown nearly full of tightly packed snow, and this required several hours to dislodge. When the stretch was cleared between Tracy and New Ulm, the Chicago and Northwestern tracks were open from Chicago to the Black Hills. The area between Tracy and New Ulm suffered more from the storm than any other section of the road between Chicago and the Black Hills. The line from Mankato east was open most of the time during the storm, as was a portion of the line west of Tracy. The county snowplow units were, I'll start that over. The county snowplow units were rushed into the maw of the great drifts on long state aid and township roads Monday afternoon and Tuesday. The road between New Ulm and Hanska was open Tuesday, and this made it possible to truck coal to that beleaguered village, which was suffering a shortage of coal. The snowplow equipment stationed at Comfrey was rushed into action and did its share of opening the roads in that part of the county the forepart of the week. The big drift near the cemetery west of New Ulm required some time to negotiate, but it was cut through Monday afternoon and the rotary went on west. Rural mail carriers had a terrible task Saturday. They started out, but none of them were able to traverse their complete routes. The blizzard was too severe to take chances in attempting to buck drifts, and they returned to the local post office after traversing valiantly that portion of their routes that was possible to negotiate.